It's full time here at St James's Park, and what a crazy game that was. 4-3 it ended, but Newcastle were 4-1 up at half time with 4 goals in 11 minutes after going behind after 6 minutes. So many crazy stats from that game that really reflects how mental my first appearance at St James's Park in the press box this season was. From just, you could feel the nerves coming into the game because of how big the game was. I said in my last video how huge this game was for the course of the season. Really lose like 9 points behind Forest, with Liverpool away on Wednesday, behind Bournemouth as well, and Villa and Chelsea really lagging in that race, with Brighton breathing down their necks. Win now, they're 3 points behind Forest and up into 5th, above all those teams, and just behind Manchester City, hoping for a Liverpool victory to keep them in level on points with them as well. But it really doesn't tell the full story of the game, to be honest, because that was such a crazy performance from Newcastle. Sandro Tonali starting on the bench was a real worry for Newcastle, because obviously he has made that number 6 role his own over the last few weeks and transformed Newcastle's season from that position as well. With, it was a weakness where Nottingham Forest came here to St James's Park last season and made the most of it in between those lines. And suddenly, with Tonali in that role, it's become a strength. They've been able to play through teams because of the calmness and the quality that he brings on the ball, and he really sets the tone. Him starting on the bench invited Nottingham Forest to really go at Newcastle, and Hudson-odoi scores from that exact position. And then you fear the worst for Newcastle, because they don't react well in games. They don't tend to deal with the fluctuations of other teams imposing themselves. That's been seen against Fulham and Bournemouth and other teams. That's what a real issue with Newcastle. They're very good at what they do, but they're also very robotic and very machine-like in certain ways, and when they're asked difficult questions they don't always have the answers. But they had the answers in that first half. 11 minutes, 4 goals, 2 from Alexander Isak, 1 from Louis Miley and 1 from Jacob Murphy, and suddenly the game should be done. It should be unassailable. Newcastle were fully deserving of that lead, even though there was not really a sense of control. It still felt like a basketball game. I think that really reflected the sort of importance of the game as well, and to both sides, to be honest, and it really showed the nerves in the stadium that the game wasn't done, because in the second half Forest came out with nothing to lose and Newcastle retreated, and suddenly when Nikola Milenkovic scores on 63 minutes, there's a sense that Forest had something to play for and they were back in the game. The 70-minute mark, Sandro Tonali comes on and suddenly Newcastle settled back into their structure again. They were creative, they were calm on the ball. His presence was really crucial. I think even without playing the full game, even only having 20 minutes on the pitch, he showed exactly why he is Newcastle's most important player. Yes, Isak scores the goals, but Newcastle just looked like a completely different team with or without Sandro Tonali, and the fact that he came on in that 20 minutes I think really rescued the win for Newcastle, because if he hadn't and Forest had scored, because they had a couple of chances 2-3 minutes later, if they'd scored again and gone 4-3 with 20 minutes to go, I don't think Newcastle are celebrating 3 points in this game. I think it's a very different game from there. But as it was, they settled down, they went back into their rhythm. It looked more structured for the first time in the game. Really, they looked like they were in control, and they saw the game out just about. Ryan Yates did score with 3 minutes to go, but by that point it was too late. Newcastle were able to get over the line, get the victory, and suddenly, as I say, this season now has a real opportunity about it. That's how key I thought this game was, because if you go in off the back of a defeat, a draw isn't the end of the world, but if you go off the back of a defeat or missing the opportunity to close the gap on Nottingham Forest with Liverpool on Wednesday, and then 2 crucial cup games which suddenly become the be-all and end-all for how important this season is. And it's very rare that the season has this much riding on it in so many different ways at this stage, which is a real positive for Newcastle. But those crucial games which I spoke about on Thursday's video, are almost a blessing and a curse, really, because if Newcastle win those games, then it's a historic season. It's the best season in any of our lifetimes. If Newcastle lose those games, or lose here and lose against Brighton and Liverpool in the cup, then suddenly the season is really in tatters almost, and it's a real difficult situation to sort of rescue. And then the future of the club comes into question as well, with the likes of Isak's future and Bruno's future and those things. So yeah, it's a really big victory for Newcastle today. I think, as I say, Tonali was the reason why it happened in the end, because if that, as I say, if he hadn't come on with 20 minutes to go and really and settled the team down with his cool and calm demeanour, then I think that game could have got very much out of Newcastle's control in the second half. Forest were very, very good going forward. Their season's been built on the same tactics. It's been built on turning teams over and getting in that space where Hudson-odoi had vacated by not playing, and I really do think that keeping him fit is crucial, and it was shown today. I was here for 4-4-2 today, so I've got a piece coming out on Monday. I won't be reacting to the video because I'll be travelling home tomorrow, so I won't be doing another video tomorrow, but piece of 4-4-2 will be coming out explaining why I think Tonali is so crucial to Newcastle. It's nothing new, but I think we saw it in a different dimension. The fact that he didn't start, then he came on and made so much of a difference, really is so huge for Newcastle. Louis Miley deserves a huge amount of credit for his first half performance. He stood up when a couple of others really weren't starting in the second half as well. I think that when the team's heads dropped, he kept going. Isak, 2 goals without really doing too much in the game as well. But that is a huge, huge victory. It didn't really matter how it happened, and you could really feel it in the city and in the build-up that there was real nervous energy. Crucially, Newcastle, just by hook or by crook, answered a question in that second half. This season they've been too inconsistent. They've been too much of an all-or-nothing team. When they set the tone, they win. When they don't, they struggle. Well, they went behind, and Forest really hit them where they were weakest, and they recovered and put them to the sword in that first half. That's really where the game was won. There were still some questions about the mentality and the quality of the performance in the second half, but Tonali coming on and making that difference really was huge for Newcastle, I think. And on to Liverpool now. It's going to be a difficult game. That's why this game was so important. Then it's Brighton at home in the cup with West Ham, and then obviously the cup final. So these weeks are huge, and that was it was just important to win the game, to set the tone for the season, to get going on this crucial run. The fact that they got over the line, the fact that they were able to calm it down and change their direction of travel in that second half with Tonali coming on, shows maybe that the team's mentality can strengthen and grow. Lots of worries about the mentality over recent weeks. Eddie Howe was asked last week at Manchester City whether the team were too focused on Wembley and whether they were ready for the games coming up, and I think there are legitimate questions to be asked about that second half, that collapse, but also the way that they went through the gears. This was the best and the worst of Newcastle United in one game, but ultimately it didn't really matter. It was all about the victory. It was all about getting the 3 points and setting the tone for these games coming up. Liverpool's going to be difficult, but then Brighton in the cup, another chance to get close to another trophy. And then West Ham away, which is a very, very winnable game going into the Carabao Cup final. Because 2 years ago, the biggest issue was that they went into the Carabao Cup final limp, on poor form, really not ready for it, and their mentality was all over the place. So they can take strength from this and really push on from here. Just about to go and hear from Eddie Howe, but I'll be back on Thursday to react to the Liverpool game. Thanks so much for joining me on this video. Like, share and subscribe as usual, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.